I think education in this country has been the ticket for changing lives and fortunes, not only for the person, but for the family, for the village. I mean, we've had kids who've transformed themselves and their entire community, and it's a great cause to pursue.
Aakash, why don't you tell us a little bit about who the Aakash in the business name Aakash really was?
The interesting story is that my name was not Aakash. There's some 12 kids back in 88, dining table setup, and 7 kids made it to a medical college out of those 12. We never looked back. That 12 became 30 next year, the 30 became 80 next year, and that's how the coaching company grew.
Can you tell us a little bit about your journey till you both met, which I know was as recent as 2019, 2020?
2020 was when we had when I sold Meritnation to Aakash, but we've known each other much before that.
How the journey transitioned from being a teacher to being an entrepreneurial transition?
So I think
one thing Indian parents must stop doing immediately.
They should stop.
So take us a little bit, Aakash, through that moment, that period when you were considering exiting out of Aakash, identifying BYJU'S. Once that exit happened, what were the collective sentiments and feelings of you guys as founders?
Remember in 2019 we had.
So what's the next vision that you have for Sparkl? Where do you think it's going? What are some of the next innovations that you're trying to invent?
A teacher is able to teach a student anywhere in the world, and the student has a device which we call the Note Vision, can actually see what the child is writing.
I've actually done a demo of, and it's phenomenal.
One thing students today care more about than previous generations.
I think there are now that we have AI, right? Concept delivery can happen in a number of more effective ways, right? But the role of a teacher as a motivator continues to remain.
Yeah.
So I tell everybody, your job will be taken by somebody who knows how to use AI, not by AI itself. So the more you embrace AI, the better it is for you. So welcome to Kin and Kindness. Kin and Kindness is a podcast where we have such meaningful, heartfelt, heartwarming, fun, sometimes cocky conversations. But what we show through those conversations is that everything, whether it's life decisions, career decisions, relationship decisions, everything boils down to kindness. And the more you spread that kindness, the more results you get in every sphere of life. So this is Kin and Kindness. I'm your host, Punnya. I am a college counselor known to sort people's careers, college decisions, etc. And with me, I have my wonderful co-host, Shubhani, who's a life coach and who's known to sort people's lives, really, right? And together, the two of us are going to be holding such a meaningful conversation, hopefully today. And I'm sure that you guys are going to have a lot of fun and a lot of takeaways.
You know, India is so reputed for exporting or, sharing some of the most brilliant minds. And it's only because of our culture of education. I think India as a country has all the youngsters really concentrating through education where they want to go in life. And today, really, we have these two amazing people who are helping the young Indians to really achieve their dream through this education route.
Right? Shubhani, I've really followed the journey of these two gentlemen we have today in the house. And I have so much respect for what they've built, so much respect for the vision that they have and how they're shaping the lives of so many kids. So let's welcome today's guests. We've got Aakash and Pavan in the house today. And we guys are going to have a rocking conversation. So welcome to our podcast, Kin and Kindness today.
Thank you, guys. Looking forward.
Thank you. So, Aakash, why don't you tell us a little bit about who the Aakash in the business name Aakash really was? Like, take us a little bit through the journey of yourself, growing up years, how Aakash became the household name that, at least when I was growing up and taking a lot of competitive exams, every household was talking about Aakash, right? So take us through that journey.
The interesting story is that my name was not Aakash. It was something else. It was changed to Aakash when my dad learned numerology.
Ah,
So he figured out that my dates don't match with my earlier name, which was Manish. And he said, this is not working out. And this was when I was 6 years old or 7 years old, something like that. He learned this interesting science and he worked out the numbers for me and my brother. He said, this number is not setting in well. Let me change his name.
Wow.
I was 6 years old, 7 years old, whatever. I mean, I couldn't care less. And then he changed the name. And obviously, so he tells us that the sort of trajectory, personally for me started to change. And somewhere in 88, he had to make a decision to open a coaching company, which was his third attempt.
right.
His first attempt was in 83. So he named after my brother, which was Ashish. And unfortunately, that didn't, grow up into what Aakash did. So he shut it down in 83, started again in 86. Somebody said that, who keeps a company's name on child's name? Try something professional. So he tried something professional, long name, Bureau for Experts, Medical Engineering, everything. Unfortunately, that also didn't see the, sunlight. So then in 88, he had learned the numerology. He's got this new name and he said, let me try this younger one. And that's how the Aakash Institute was born in 88. So that's the story from me being born as Manish and changed to Aakash and then Aakash Institute coming in.
Yeah. And rest is history, of course.
So rest is history. I mean, started with 12 kids back in 88 in a dining table setup. And 7 kids made it to a medical college out of those 12.
Wow.
And, he never looked back. I mean, that 12 became 30 next year. The 30 became 80 next year. And that's how the coaching company grew.
And you've always been in Delhi, Aakash. That's
Yeah,
where you've
in
grown
Delhi, born, brought up in Delhi. Finished my schooling from DPS Arkipuram. Followed my journey into engineering at MD University, Rohtak. Started, with tech company TCS. Was on bench for many, many months because it was the dot-com burst era,
up. Sure.
2001. Started, going to my dad. I said, okay, I don't have a job. Can you help me, with some work? So he said, okay, this is Aakash Institute. I'm busy with my classes. So you figure out what you can do in this. So I tried, putting some structure there. But within a year, I realized that, he has a way too successful a career to look into anything else outside of what he was delivering in the
Right.
classrooms. So I think I tried about a year with him. So that did not work out. So I started an advertising and production business.
Oh, wow.
Completely different from,
Yeah.
to our earlier conversation of
Correct.
tech into creativity.
Yeah.
And that did well for some time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got greedy that let me just do a national, project or a release. And unfortunately, the client didn't pay up and the company went bankrupt. I had to shut it down. And that's where I realized that, I need more education, more experience
Hmm.
before I take bigger, better calls. Yeah. And then I, of course, did my MBA and went on to join back Aakash
Right.
later in 2006.
But this whole stint in the advertising or creative world must have really given you a bigger understanding of your next actual venture.
I think advertising, what came out of advertising, I met my wife. Because she was into designs,
So
and
then
I
it
bumped
So it was
into
meant to
her.
happen.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
successful.
very
venture.
successful. I must say that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To our earlier conversation, anything
Yeah.
and everything that happens in life, there is
It's
a
so
reason.
divine.
right?
Absolutely.
So me, not getting into or not pursuing my medical education after my 12th, getting into a technical education, having a small stint by my father and understanding, the entrepreneurial journey and, how do you bring experience and, creativity together, what an experienced entrepreneur is missing, how do you add that and what is the right stage to add that. All those experiences, helped me build a very good relation with him when we joined hands, back in 2006. So all those, avenues really had a message for me.
Yeah. There's a one for the viewers. The conversation was that nothing happens in our life without that divine timing. The opportunity, the person, the business, it will never pass you by. That ship will not sail. It will be on that dock till you get your eyes open, and you will, ride that. You will sail that ship. So that is the one thing which we were talking about just before this, and which we all really believe in. Pavan, we come to you.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your journey till you both met, which I know was as recent as 2019, 2020?
2020 was when sort of we had when I sold Meritnation to Aakash, but we've known each other much before that.
Okay.
In the same industry.
So
yeah.
Tell us about yourself a little.
So
your journey.
Yes, I spent a few years in Delhi early on in my life, but my father was in Air Force, so I have studied and I've stayed in Chandigarh, Delhi, Bangalore, and have been a KV student practically, and then the obvious choice was to do engineering, which I did. And back then, 94, I finished my engineering, and that was the time when after engineering, you probably either do your MS or you do your MBA. So I wrote CAT, got into Bangalore. So till then, it was sort of sorted, right? That's what you do. That's what everyone does.
Yeah,
right?
that's what the whole conversation was. Yeah.
But after passing out of Bangalore, and that was also the time when entrepreneurship was not particularly respected in that sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you pass out of an IIM, you become a jet
It was
setter.
a professional.
You start a company, they were like, you didn't get a job.
Yeah.
You're doing that.
That's true. That's true.
So I picked up a job. I joined this company called Philips for 3 months. The only good that came out of that was I met my wife.
Oh my God, you both really went into some failed entrepreneurial or professional situations
for
to
the
just meet your
viewers,
wives.
we've got two, entrepreneur junkies who are completely smitten by their better halves, and they've built great partnerships both in life and at work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Continue.
So and that was actually a very important thing for me. Starting off. So those 3 months told me one thing very clearly, that this is not the place for you, and you need to really start something on your own.
Sure.
And one did not have too much money, right, to begin. So finding my wife obviously helped. You have someone at home who's going to sort of keep the home fires burning.
Yeah.
And we obviously had this decision to make, my co-founder and I, that what do we do? We want to start off on our own, but what do you do, right? And we realized that we might have a knack for teaching, so we got into education. So we got into education by chance, actually.
Okay.
And we started preparing students for CAT. We said, we've gone through this process, maybe that's what we can do. And that's how the journey started. We got some 50 students in the first year, and second year we got some 150, 200 students, and we were in the classroom teaching and then counseling, and it started sort of scaling up. And we realized that this is something we really love, being in the classroom, being in front of students, being in front of parents. Then we sold our company to another test prep player, which was into actually preparing students for aptitude tests. And we spent 5 to 6 years setting up their offline centers.
Yeah,
we did that and then exited that. And back in 2006, then I started a content services company where we were sort of creating content, mainly in the area of assessment for publishing companies in US and Canada and stuff like that. Then 2009 is when I launched Meritnation. That was again a result of a chance discussion with Sanjeev Bikhchandani, who happened to be a very close friend. And Naukri obviously had done its IPO, and we're generally catching up. And I said, what are you doing? I said, I'm doing this. And he said, why don't we take it online?
This is 2009.
2009, yeah. So 2008, we started having these discussions. Wow. And so 2009, then launched Meritnation with InfoEdge as an investor. And then 2020,
So
was
for
the
good
right
11
time.
years, you were already part of this whole online,
Oh yes,
Hmm.
yes.
stuff. Whereas for you, Aakash, after 2020, you really went properly into
No.
online?
So in
Or
fact,
was
I
it before
remember.
that?
Yeah. So when I started the Aakash journey as a franchisee in Bombay,
Correct.
I remember we opened a center, our second center after Andheri
Mhm.
in Vashi. And obviously, as a coaching company, you reach out to many schools in
Mhm.
the in your area of work. So one of the areas that was as part of our market for Vashi in Navi Mumbai was JNPT. So I went to JNPT KV and I was having an interaction with the principal there, and he said, this is who we are, and we are from Delhi, and we tutor kids for you know PCB and PCM, like your medical
Sure.
and engineering. If you have any kids who need that help, we're happy to do a tie-up or integrate or help out. And I was shocked. The principal tells me that I don't have a biology teacher for last 6 months. Can you help
Mm.
me? My board exams are coming. And I'm like, really? You're sitting in pretty much Bombay,
Right.
and you don't have a talent? And he said, no, and we don't. And I said, I only have one set of teachers, so I can't send them here.
Right.
But what we can do is we can record videotapes and send you. And so we did that. And obviously, it was very expensive. So he said, we'll do for a few doubt sessions rather
Correct.
than the whole thing. So that, idea sort of stayed with me. So when I came back to Delhi to build the whole Aakash Institute as a business, so one of the first things that we did, we set up a new division called Aakash Digital.
Mhm.
And what we did was we asked all our star teachers, why don't you come? Let's record your content, and we can play that in the classrooms.
Mhm.
In the first 6 months, it was such a roaring success because in coaching, there's a typical behavior. Every child who takes admission wants to go to the star teacher's classroom. Unfortunately, you cannot because there's a limitation,
Sure.
50 kids, 60 kids, and then you have to go on to the other teachers or
Sure.
other batch. Now, with this, what we did, we played the same lecture in 5 classes at the
Wow.
same time
Yeah.
while the actual teacher being there. So, in case you want to talk, you can talk, but you can, in terms of the content, you can see this teacher. That became such a problem for all the teachers, and they told all the students, you paid money for watching a TV, you paid money to be taught by a teacher. So they got really hassled, and there was a scare
Sure.
that our jobs are at stake with this. So I said, okay, and then my father says, I think we need to shut this down because teachers are getting jittery here.
Sure.
So we canned that project, but I said, let's
But
not
it
show
has
to
a
our
merit
kids.
to, yeah.
Let's show to the other kids who are not in Aakash. So what we did, we recorded the lectures, and we sort of burned them on DVDs,
Mhm.
and we created this business called Aakash iSmart. So we'll ship you the DVDs, and but then it'll carry a DRM, like a digital rights management software that will stop you from copying. So we did all of that, but we realized the moment we shipped the DVDs, every child had a pirated Microsoft. It
Yeah.
will not play.
Yeah.
And then they said, we're not going to change and buy a authentic Microsoft license because I want to play your DVD. So that business canned. We said, okay, what do we do? So then in 2012, I bumped into someone who was selling like 7-inch tablets,
Mhm.
a Chinese tablet, and I showed him the DVD. He said, I can put that entire content into a into a micro card, and then we can ship them.
Also inbuilt with whatever the content,
Content
on the
built
DVD,
in
went into
tablet.
a chip,
chip,
and
which
chip
was
into a
in the
into
DVD,
a
that
tablet,
tablet.
and then we shipped the whole thing. And that business first year did pretty well, and then it started to grow, and we started placing orders for tablets from China directly.
In
And
fact, then the piracy also must have gone down. कोई copy करने के लिए नहीं
no,
है.
nothing. It had a very strong digital rights software on it,
Wow. Yeah.
and our content was protected.
Right.
And back then, the household would have one computer, and that was a household computer. The father,
Everybody
the
would have
mother,
had-
the sister, the brother,
Everybody would
everybody
share
used
the
one
device,
computer.
yeah.
And then this allowed the child to have their own device, their own learning device. And that's when we said, okay, this seems like
Oh my God, that
there is
was
a
such
business here.
game
There's an
changer.
opportunity here. And then I, heard on the TV ads a brand called Meritnation. Then I cold called Pavan.
But honestly, I've known Aakash since then, right? And
Mhm.
he's always been very curious. While Aakash is always associated with offline,
Mhm.
but this Aakash has been always extremely curious about technology, digital, online, even back then.
Yeah.
So experimenting, figuring out, ye kar sakte hain kya? Can we do this? Can we do that?
Yeah.
And even today, that curiosity is there.
Yeah,
So
because the way he's connecting dots to just reach from the digital classroom to suddenly getting that chip fitted into a tablet so that everybody could see without really taking that time. Yeah,
So
that's-
digital would have come naturally to him. I mean,
Yeah.
So that was
but-
a start of digital for us and for
Yeah.
Aakash.
yeah.
And
for
also
me
Khan
personally.
Academy and so many others gradually started.
Yeah, so
taking
so it
speed.
looked like the world is waking up to this method. And because I was surrounded by teachers, and I could actually see back then a good content delivering teacher in a good format was a rare thing, and people would pay any kind of premium to be in that
Yeah.
classroom. So if I was able to capture all of that and take it to masses, that seemed like such an obvious thing. But and I remember very clearly my father coming to me and said, suddenly, then the order started to come in. His distance learning, business, which was like sending booklets. So that team came to him, sir, ab to, our business has no future. Everybody is asking for that tablet. And then he comes and said, we need to shut this down. I said, why? I said, because we are killing our business. I said, it's better that we kill our business before somebody else kills our business.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we kill their business also. And I think that 1 hour conversation was literally the initiation for us to identify what more can we do in digital. And then, to learn from the experts. So I cold called Pavan. I said, hey, this is Aakash. We run Aakash Institute. You're doing Meritnation. I want to catch up. And he came to meet with lots of guards up. I don't know what I'm going to take away. Not sharing, what he's doing, what technology and how they're growing.
There was a reason, Aakash. I was also figuring out.
Yeah. So that's how the Aakash digital story started. Yeah.
One more, just before we shift, to even shoot a video which somehow gets a child interested requires a bit of some kind of planning. ऐसे तो नहीं हो सकता कि
No,
did you
a lot of planning.
it
And
requires
not
a lot of
only the
planning.
planning.
yeah, how are you going to shoot it? What will the
Logistics is
child
insane.
All our top
resonate
teachers
with?
failed. They went in
This
front
is
of the
what-
camera.
So yeah, that's what I wanted
And they
to
were like
talk
blank.
about.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
said, "Bacche kahan hai? Where are the kids?" I
Yeah.
said, they know kids. Just look at the red light at the camera and that's your student. I can't teach. Some of the best teachers
That's
who
what
were
I wanted to
stars,
say.
It's
Yeah.
they could not teach.
Yeah.
And then I realized that you need a content guy with acting skills.
Yeah.
That is going to be your digital star.
And you only figured that out because of that failed venture of
No,
being in the
because I was on the
creative.
other side,
That's it.
waiting that, when will this guy start?
Mm.
And the guy is just not going and then taking breaks after breaks after breaks. I said, this is not working.
No.
And, okay, let me have water. Let me go out. I forgot something. I need a teleprompter. I said, ho kya raha? Why is this not working? Then I realized that it's not only the teaching skill. We need somebody with teaching skills and acting skills
Yes.
who can engage a student who's probably watching on the other side of the lens.
Correct.
So in fact, in Meritnation, we started off, obviously created a lot of content videos. So I used to shoot the videos myself, and we actually overturned the whole process of writing a script and, storyboard and figuring out. So I said, okay, here's a question. I'm a math teacher. I'll start teaching and I'll start imagining what will come on the screen then.
Yeah.
How do you create those animations? Okay, now look at this, and you start talking and you start doing that. But it is very difficult for the first time to be
That's
in front
it.
of the camera.
To know something and one is to teach.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
already tough. Then now to translate over a medium which you're not so familiar with.
It is. It's a very different ballgame.
That to me is where it really shifts.
I mean, I had some advantage there. I'd done this. There was this TV channel, Education Topper TV, and I shot some 130 episodes for them for math. And so in 2007, 2008, so I had some experience there. But you can be a great teacher, but you can just sound in front of the camera. You just don't know, looking at the camera and not talking to a student actually and explaining ax square plus bx plus c equals 0. It's very, very, very different, right? Yeah.
So Pavan, you mentioned you were a math teacher before, running this company. Tell us a little bit about how the journey transitioned from being a teacher to being an entrepreneur, and I have a lot of respect for people who teach. I myself started my journey as a math coach, like you know that.
Yeah.
And then got onto the business side of things. So tell us a little bit about that transition.
So I think, teaching was an integral part of what we were offering, right? When we started off with preparing students for various aptitude exams, and we used to teach, and that was a business really, right? So teaching was the business for us for the longest period of time. And when you teach, you also need to create content, and you need to understand how to create good quality content. So you understand how to create, you do that. So that's what we did. So which helped us, and 3-4 years of creating content for aligned to international curricula, for example, taught us a few more things. The thing is, I mean, if you enjoy teaching, if you love teaching, the teacher in you is always there. And that's a good thing, So today also, when we figure out what is the kind of product, what is the kind of feature which will sort of work, you need to understand how the students will react to it. You can have great looking features, you can do this, you can do that, but the student will look at this for 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and will get back to something else, And we would have these thought processes where we would think, instead of getting the student to the product, can you take the product to the student? And therefore, what do you do in terms of when they are reading through their book and stuff like that? So a teacher has always been an integral part of what I am even today, and that I hope allows us to create great products, good products there.
To me,
so business and teaching have gone hand in hand always. And see, the concept delivery now that we have AI, right? Concept delivery can happen in a number of more effective ways, right? But the role of a teacher as a motivator continues to remain, right? And I think that's always been we would have after the class, and you would have seen, Aakash, as well, after the class, we have the students who, come to you, they flock around and then they ask you questions, and then the fears that they have, they talk about all of that. And, that's really, that's the real fun in teaching. That's very fulfilling, right? So that role of the teacher as motivator, I think that is the most important role, and it's going to remain irrespective of, where AI takes us,
Yeah, AI, that way I just think it's a great facilitator, but it can't replace the heads of each.
I agree. So I tell everybody, your job will be taken by somebody who knows how to use AI, not by AI itself.
Yeah.
So the more you embrace AI, the better it is for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's address the elephant in the room, which is the exit of the business, to selling it to BYJU'S. We all know what the name BYJU'S, and everybody talked about how BYJU'S got the industry to a certain level and name, and also there were so many other things attached to it. So the more I read about the exit of your business to BYJU'S, people said it was what a great timing, excellent time to exit and sell it to BYJU'S and get out and start something else. So take us a little bit, Aakash, through that moment, that period when you were considering exiting out of Aakash, identifying BYJU'S. Once that exit happened, what were the collective sentiments and feelings of you guys as founders and everybody else around who was associated with the company?
Firstly, we were not looking out to sell. Like it just happened. I remember in 2019 we had taken a private equity investment from Blackstone. And when Blackstone came on board, so we built a good 5 to 6 year plan with the PE on board. And, this is what we'll do. 2025, 26, we'll look at a listing. And, that was the story that we had put together. But unfortunately, in 2020 March, the COVID happened, and we were able to turn around the challenge. Being an offline center-to-center business, we were able to transition from a completely offline company to a completely online company, because we've been working on a lot of our digital
Design.
initiatives for many, many years.
Right.
But we had a lot of partners, with whom we were working. And our January 2020 acquisition of Meritnation allowed us that capability to be completely in-house, and the entire team to turn that around quickly. So I think for us, that timing of having a world-class private equity strategic guy behind us to do the thinking jointly with us, and Meritnation with a solid product and a platform with us, allowed us to remain afloat as a company in the COVID situation. So we were able to launch all our upcoming programs, which were supposed to launch in our classroom centers completely online. And somewhere in the June, we were reached out by BYJU'S and his team that, hey, you guys are doing a good job, and we are building our online business. Do you think we can work together? So at that time, since Blackstone had just come a few months earlier, so we said, no, we're not keen. We've got a P, and then we have a 5-year plan charted out. So we are not looking out to sell or partner with another person. So that conversation ended. There was a radio silence for good 1.5, 2 months. And then again, there was an approach. What have you thought? I said, no, the answer is same, because we have a plan charted out, and we did have a conversation with the PE guys, and they said, we have controlled the problem. We are growing despite all of this. So let's stick to our guns and we'll build it out. And so I said, okay, fine. We went back. I said, yeah, thank you for the second time approach, and we are not keen. And then, of course, again, the third time, some banker got involved and said, it's a great deal, it's a great brand, everything going online. And then the second wave started, started to come in, and we were like, oh shit,
that was a
this
terrible one.
this
Yeah, that was a scary
COVID
one.
situation is not going away.
Yeah.
So, what's going to happen? So I said, okay, let's do a conversation. What is it? So they came very strategically to us. They said, you guys are the guys who are very good in the offline side, and we have online capabilities also. We are the online king, on the K-12 side. Why don't we put 1 and 1 together and make it 11 rather than 2? So it sounded like a good overall strategic vision, and that's where we started the discussion. And I think it was in December 2020, we finally said yes. Okay, this is the structure, this is the transaction, and let's get the lawyers involved and close the transaction.
Right.
So and in April 21 is when we sort of signed the whole transaction and went on with our merger phase 1. So as I said, we were not a seller.
Actively looking at selling.
It was not a clear decision. I think that's why it was in fits and starts. You'd have a conversation. Okay, this sort of makes sense. This doesn't make sense.
Yeah, Pavan and I were also like back and forth on karna hai, nahi karna hai, what do you think?
This is what we were saying, when an opportunity, it will not pass you by.
Man
was really
proposes, God disposes.
No, because they got the time to rethink it when they weren't in any kind of a dire.
It was not an overnight decision. It was a long 6 months
and
deliberation.
Yet, so it was something which was, because then the phase 2, or now the chapter 2, as they say.
It's also for like Aakash, for example, has always been, ever since I've seen him, has been very operationally involved, right?
Yes.
So you get up in the morning and then you have tons of things to do, right?
Right.
And that's what he's been like. We've always been doing, right, throughout. So when you decide to sell, that question also somewhere at the back of mind is there. Okay,
what now?
Once you do this, then what does one do? But thankfully, there was a sort of combined vision. At least that's what we thought, that there'll be something great that Aakash and BYJU.
Yeah, so we thought that it's not that I'm like hanging my boots.
So
Right.
It's like, the conversation was, we're launching in US, we're launching in Latin America. They had acquired a couple of other players like White Hat and others, and
Right.
So the discussion was, Pavan can handle one of the other markets, I can handle the other markets, and bring on more acquisitions and take them to the path of profitability, because that's what we've been doing for many years. So there was a sort of a role and
A
contribution
Yeah.
set out, and while we do that, with Blackstone and some discussions with BYJU'S team, we had already identified a CEO that if I step out of this operating role, so somebody will come in my place and do the day-to-day chores for the Aakash business while I oversee this, but operationally get myself involved in the other initiative at a group level. So I think that was the conversation. It was never like, here's a key for the business.
Obviously.
We take the money and thank you, we don't see you. It was never like that. It was to build the larger vision even bigger and take it global. Like, I think they literally had one of the most amazing opportunity to build a global company in education from India for the world.
That's it.
Well, it didn't turn out that way, though.
Yeah, but you have to sustain that, right?
Yeah,
that build up. That they could not.
Exactly.
One of the most difficult phases for us, and for me personally, and for the business,
Yeah.
because we thought that we've sort of handed over the Aakash to a good home or a house, or this baby has gone to a good pastoral care, but unfortunately,
And you're there to oversee it for a little while, if nothing.
Oversee it for a little while, and I think it was quite a new experience for me, because I was operationally very involved, day to day, back to back. There's so much work, so much travel, centers, teachers,
That's
everything. And then suddenly there's vacuum.
Yeah.
There's no one to meet you. No one waiting for your approval. No one asking for your time.
I used to meet you, Aakash.
Thanks, bro.
And there was no vision, because for
and
a little while,
and the vision we sold into.
for a little while, there
and I
was
said,
no vision
where is
either.
this going? So this pain has a cost, but this is not working out.
Look at how my vision changed. I mean, I had a vision with Aakash.
That
We will
is
do
what I'm
this.
saying. So,
And a year down the line, okay, there's a different vision now. I mean, I was visioning all the time.
so Pavan, can we get into that? Because obviously you can see that Aakash would have, had a bit of a tough phase at that period, in that time.
Yeah.
Take us through your journey through that phase of Aakash.
I think the first phase before BYJU approached and those discussions started, I think that was as we had planned. Sort of, we knew each other very well. We were friends, and there were very clear synergies, and the task was sort of clearly cut out.
Correct.
And private equity being there, they had also sort of cast the roadmap in terms of how you have to go about it. So we were on to that journey, and then COVID happened, and first time, yes, we were very quickly able to take everything online, and we pushed through it. And as Aakash mentioned, second time, sometimes when you are in the midst of such a change, you believe that fundamentally things are going to change forever, right?
Yeah.
And that sort of pushes you towards a different decision. So it was, I had been an entrepreneur my entire life. Operationally, obviously, there was a lot to do. Immediately, COVID happened, different change, so we didn't have time to think. So that also sort of continued. When the BYJU thing happened, Aakash obviously was always very operationally involved. I have always been a very operationally involved guy. And we saw a vision. We said, yes, there is a ton of stuff we could do. And this was a real problem, actually. Suddenly one fine day you realize that this vision is not panning out the way you thought it would pan out.
It's existentially, it's an existential crisis at its
absolutely
best.
And you get up in the morning,
and then you're like, oh my God! And here you have built something. And
till yesterday you had no time, and today
Yeah.
suddenly you have a lot of time. What do you do? So that was a real challenge.
And the interesting part was, although some of the BYJU businesses weren't doing the way they were
supposed
planning
to pan
that to
out.
be, or they were thinking about. But the Aakash business was still doing well.
Yeah.
So what they did, they started digging into the cash reserves of Aakash, and I couldn't stop it.
Oh no. The
And
heartbreak
my
after
team is asking
heartbreak.
me, intervene. I can't because I've lost the right. Right. And I remember a conversation, I was talking to some senior guy who's leaving. He said, why are you leaving? It was on a phone. And, you've given so many years of service, and, we've worked with you, you've grown, and now when we need you, you're going. He says, sir, you also left.
Oh my God.
And
that would have hit you.
That hit me.
Yeah, that would have hit you.
That I also left. And when I asked him, why are you leaving? He said, this is a good salary, good role. So you also left, you sold. And I realized that, how people are seeing this transaction as, money exchanging hands, and, we've sort of given up. But at least that they realize that, the idea was to build a larger future and create more value for the company and the stakeholders and the employees. Unfortunately, that didn't pan out. And it seemed like, we've done a bad deal. And so we will look out for our own green pastures, the way you did it. And I had no answer to that. And then, not enough patience to explain the whole situation to them. But that's how, people take it.
So personally, professionally, that how do you really, every day get out of it till it starts running again?
So I think I took recourse in, I took recourse in a lot of spiritual interventions, started look inside. And I bumped into, this senior IS officer, and I was just, chatting. He said, that's how I felt when I retired. The day before, I was ruling the country, so to say, the department. I was the next day, nobody even called me. Nobody, even my driver left. My car went.
Oh my God.
And I was like, and I said, so this is the chart of life. Everybody has to go through. So I'm experiencing something that probably I would have experienced in my 60s
years later.
or years later, or people generally do that.
Yeah.
And, taking that as, another role that I've played, I need to move on to my next role. That allowed me to really calm myself down and say, okay, let's search for the next role, rather than, digging deep into why it happened, why me, and, we had planned such beautiful things, and, it's our baby, and, we have to let go. So
also, you now know better.
Yeah.
Through two things. One is, of course, through the whole practical stuff of, okay, next time ask questions which are more not valid. I won't know, understand that, but more intrusive questions. And secondly, I think because of that digging deeper, your capacity of as the founder for the next chapter, which we are going to ask, that must have changed. Like now you understand business through the growth and the heartache and the win and the loss of everything combined. You're just showing up as a different person for a much different win.
Absolutely. And I think to this question, not only for me, even for Pavan, I mean, the heartaches at all places, because he built Meritnation. Even that banner is down.
Right.
So for us, I think in the new journey, our search has always now been focused on the intent over objectives.
Right.
That, what is the intent with which we are partnering or we are building something, rather than an objective of achieving a certain milestone and move on and forget about why we're doing it. So I think that shift has come in so strongly. And that's how we look at all the opportunities today.
And that's
isn't it better that it happened sooner than later then?
Oh no, so that's why I said, at that time I was like,
I mean,
completely
I could have
lost.
waited.
Yeah.
But now it is
Now
like,
I'm
thank God I
good, it
learned
happened.
it.
Yeah.
Good riddance.
No,
But
it's not
actually,
even
a few
riddance.
days.
You learn it then.
So a
You
few days
learn
back,
it
we were
earlier.
having this discussion, in fact.
Yeah.
And we were actually, when we discussed, we said, good that all that happened, what happened, right? I mean, And
Who
the
knows?
perfect
AI
time.
would change the whole coaching
Oh
sector.
Yeah,
my
God knows,
God.
yes.
Just imagine. Actually,
Yeah.
nick of time
And
then.
it is impacting what I hear,
Yeah.
that the online technology education, what it has done is has actually broken down the entire business model for coaching, because the cost that comes with an offline setup
Mhm.
is significant, and the cost that comes with running an operation in an offline setup is also significant. So when you're sitting on that expense and somebody with an online program comes at a cheaper price, it completely destroys your operation, that entire framework and that model. And that is the problem that the current coaching companies are facing. They're sitting at maybe a large set of numbers and revenue, but they're bleeding with the profitability.
Right.
So that's the reality that we're looking at. And in fact, we were discussing, maybe it was a wiser decision. We don't know, good or bad, who knows, kind
No,
of
no,
a
not
story.
maybe. 100% it was the wiser decision. And like I said, divine timing, that ship had to sail for your next ship to come
Yeah,
and dock
yeah.
itself in the harbor.
In fact, that was one of our coping mechanisms. We kept thinking about what we could do next.
Yes.
And I think this was also, to some extent, a matter of chance as well. Akash was looking at sending his son abroad to study for a bit to school, and my son was passing out of school, and he had to, go abroad. And we started looking at the whole space and stuff like that.
And we're like, this is the
This is-
playground.
yes.
Let's play here.
This is good.
So I think Pavan can add, but to me, I recently did a post, recalling one of my experiences where sort of failed in maths in grade 4. I remember very poor marks, like 9 out of 50. I come home, obviously, how would the Indian parent react to
Yeah.
that report card?
Especially if your parent is
into
Right.
education. So thankfully that hadn't reached my father, so my mother sort of sorted that out for me. And then he said, you need to go to this teacher. So I went to this teacher for tuition. And there I realized what my problem was. That I would read something and assume that I know it now fully. And I would just practice a question or two and then move on. Next chapter, next topic. And they're like the problem. And when I did the same with this teacher, she said, there are 30 questions. We will do all. I'm like, really? I just did one. All. Then I did 10. I said, you have done 10. All. So, and then I started, realizing that I've not got the concept. I'm stuck at 12, stuck at 15, stuck at 18. And then she kept helping me with a very, very personalized, bespoke, only for me methodology. And that method really stayed with me. So it's never the the content, it's the teacher. It's the
Absolutely, yeah.
personalization
So true.
effort that the teacher does to figure out what is missing in this child and how can we solve for this problem. And I think so that concept around personalized tutoring, which wasn't possible in the Aakash ecosystem because we're doing one-to-many, because of the model, because of the need and the demand, we could not do that. And at that time there was no AI who could teach, right, personalized. So that's where Pavan and I started discussing that, dude, we need to there is a personalized, bespoke, customized tutoring need. Let's start with the teacher led, where one teacher, one student teaches on an online platform. And I'd come from the offline world. I said, we're not setting up new centers and calling architects and putting furnitures and doing all that. That's not going to work for us. This is a depreciating, preposition for us. Let's do it completely online. And with Pavan and his team's experience, they were able to put together an amazing platform. We call it Infinity, where a teacher is able to teach a student anywhere in the world, and the student has a device which we call the Note Vision, can actually see what the child is writing.
I've actually done a demo of, and it's phenomenal.
It actually,
Pavan
it's
took
like,
me
you know, I'm
through it.
sitting
Yeah,
with
yeah,
you
me too.
and
Yeah, and
I can peep into your book.
See
that, I mean, that
And
was
I can
the biggest
annotate key.
loophole of a online class.
There was a loophole.
And they-
The student can only see the digital board of a teacher,
Yeah,
but the teacher could not see.
couldn't see
Exactly,
that.
yeah.
And where the eyes are shifted.
So,
Oh my
So
God.
they ship this device to every student
Yeah.
when the student enrolls with them.
Okay, if I can please just understand as a 2-year-old, this is a specific model only by
Nobody
it's
else.
integrated with our platform, and we applied for the patent also for that actually. And see, again, you were
explain
talking about
further. Yeah, this is very
you
interesting.
know, being a teacher, right? I mean, these are the insights
Yeah.
which take the form of a product or a feature at the end of the
Yes,
day, right?
yes.
And this also was a very simple insight. I said, when I used to teach, and even in the offline world, I would give a question, and the students would be solving.
Sure.
And the question might take 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, or whatever, right? And I had nothing to do, you know. So I was really discussing, and said, "Yeah, when the student is solving the question, what is the value teacher can add? That somehow if teacher can get a look into the notebook of the student,
Yeah.
then the teacher can get into the process of problem solving that the student is employing, and how do you improve and intervene at the right time. And that's how we started thinking, okay, how do we do that? And that's how
God,
this
Pavan, you're
thing
such
sort
a
of
gold
came.
standard for as a teacher, man. Please talk more. I will, and teach us also, the older ones. I
No,
wouldn't
but
mind
so-
going
see,
back into something.
But as a teacher, these are the insights. See, ultimately, great insights, make great products, right? At the
Yeah.
end of the day. So,
Yeah.
and we've done this for now so many years, and especially Aakash is such a stickler for these small little things.
Yeah.
And you were talking about engineering and creativity.
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of the best design guys that I've seen.
Yeah.
Who understand that bit. So we keep thinking about small things, tweaking, very simple things. For example, we ship a pad to every teacher to write, right?
Sure.
And there are two options in that. One has a screen there where it becomes much easier for the teacher to see what is there and can
Sure.
annotate on top of that. So we studied that, and we realized that when that is happening, when the teacher is looking down and writing, when the teacher is doing that, the teacher doesn't have an eye contact with the student.
Right.
And when you don't have an eye contact, the whole experience of teaching and learning, becomes,
Yeah.
So we said, okay, teachers can take some time getting used to looking at the screen there and writing on, scribbling on this.
Right.
And we've done it in the past as well, but we made that choice. So there are these lots of small choices which help you
No,
create
the tweaks
something.
is where the God is in the details.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Literally, God, success, purpose. If you really come down to it, it really is who found that detail and then
Absolutely.
really delivered it to the people who
Yeah,
really
yeah.
were looking for it.
Yeah.
But that's game changer, man.
Absolutely, it's really good.
That's fabulous.
So that got us a lot of.
So Go Baiju took that away so that you guys are doing so. We'll cut this out. But I don't want to be killed for something.
If you
But
really want
really.
the TRPs, we would have to.
That's true. Because, how visionary is that?
So,
to
what's the
understand?
next vision that you have for Sparkl? Where do you think it's going? What are some of the next innovations that you're trying to inbuild into the business?
I think we are doing a fair bit of stuff now, especially. So when we started off, that was also around the time when ChatGPT, the consumer product, sort of came out, and it became sort of clear that AI is going to become a thing. While in the early days, obviously, it did not used to work as well as one would have wanted to. But we kept at it. So when we started building this product for our teacher-led tutoring, we also started our AI journey. And we've been at it now for 2 years, and we've done some really, really terrific work. Aakash can talk more about it.
No, I think what we learned from this one-on-one tutoring is actually understanding the entire personalized, customized tutoring framework. And that entire framework was fed in to create algorithms for the AI tutor that we build, and with which we can teach a student in a very interactive, conversational way without any human being being there, as far as content is concerned.
Hmm.
But you need the human intervention to, put this whole regime together.
Right.
Who's been assigned what topic, have you done that, have you done the assignment, the whole regime, so that you are monitoring and sort of intervening at the right time. So I think that's the way forward, is what we feel strongly. AI can play a very, very significant role.
And there's a
So-
bit of a discovery process in terms of what model will evolve, what will work.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But we are very clear about one thing, that at the end of the day, especially in the space that we are in, the students need to be mentored, right?
Yes.
And that role is extremely important and will continue to remain extremely important, irrespective of what level of tech sort of comes, right?
And I'm sure you guys remember, the dial-up internet era.
Oh yeah.
Right.
That
You
noise.
remember that
Still
funny
remember it.
noise? That,
Yeah.
Would you imagine, playing live videos on that network? No, we'll never in our lifetime see like interactive videos on this,
Hmm.
Yeah.
right? But the technology has
Look
come so
where
far.
it's. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah.
It's crazy. It's on the
generation
phone. I mean,
has-
who imagined a smartphone? It was all button phone,
Yeah,
feature phone. But AI, I think in next 2-3 years, will go through an exponential, capability enhancement, and that is what we are betting on.
Yeah.
We are not betting on what it is today.
Hmm.
But we're
No.
betting on. I think bet may not be the right word, but we are confident on how AI will become so very powerful and can add straight away into the needs of education sector. In fact, education, consulting, legal services are some of the lowest hanging fruit, which can definitely take bucket loads of capabilities from AI and
Absolutely,
completely
yeah.
transform the way they are done today.
You guys must think about this whole thing through the mental health route also.
You,
Because I
you
was
will
ju-
be amazed.
I
You'll
was
be
just
amazed
going
the kind of, so for a mental health, let's say a consultation
yeah.
or a conversation, you need an expert with years and years of experience,
Yeah.
and they have to be cognizant and articulate enough to understand, to sensitize, and then give suggestions.
Right.
I don't know if you've had an opportunity to interact with an AI conversational consultant on the mental health. You will be amazed the
Mhm.
amount of empathy,
Mm-hmm.
the kinds of suggestions,
Mm-hmm.
the kind of roadmap AI can today
provide.
put together for you and can create a roadmap for you is brilliant. And we just got started. And I think in counseling and in consulting,
That's it.
a
The
lot of
prompts.
this is going to come in because you
Absolutely.
can't remember and call in information from all over the globe, whether it is university, whether it is career, whether it is mental health problem, whether it is the solutions for all of that. But AI can, at a breakneck speed in terms of its capability to process.
So what is going to happen to the human element in this whole thing? Where do you
They
see?
will, I think for them, they will, it is yet to be discovered, but in my view, I think they will close the ends.
Yeah.
Because,
the prompts have to be
It'll be
from
the
the humans.
orchestrators,
the orchestrator,
yeah.
like, where to stop. Like you are overdoing it, that those manual interventions will actually ensure that this design regimentation is delivering as thought so,
Yeah.
or I need to intervene.
Well, I think it's what's also going to happen is the productivity obviously increases. We'll clearly see, which we are
Right,
seeing. In our
right.
case, we've been seeing for the last 2 years stuff that for which we used to employ hundreds of people, we are able
Exactly.
to do with a couple of people now.
Right.
Really, So that's going to happen. So what that does, therefore, is what else can you, what
Do
value can
with
you
your
add
time.
in that time that
Yeah.
you've got?
Yeah.
So you create something more valuable. You
Mhm.
figure out. So most of the people who are able to understand this bit and continuously work on themselves,
Yeah.
reinvent, redefine. I think there is enough stuff to be done as we are realizing in our own journey
No,
with
I
AI.
always say that we just had this conversation that science is this technological level of science is just level 1. The ultimate level of science is actually creativity, going
Yeah.
back into the whole
Yes.
quantum creative worlds. So which is what we were having this conversation, that actually AI is going to get us back into that whole creative
Yes.
understanding of
Yeah.
what else is life. Maybe, you
So
know,
right now we are restricted
no, we have
from
to
because
just
of the
do-
process
yes,
and the tools.
Yes.
Right.
Now that has been completely taken away. That problem
Right.
is solved. Now
Now you have
think,
time.
think
Now
what you
think.
want,
Yeah.
and it will make it.
Yeah.
Earlier, even if you had a thought,
There's
that
no
I'm going to
excuse.
find a software engineer, a product guy, a thinker, an architect before I could see how
Yeah.
it looked. Few sentences in English, and you can actually see the product being there. And you say, oh, wow, this makes sense. I mean, this completely emulates my thought process or not. It doesn't. I'll change it. Now it makes. So I think you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
The creativity. So we're going to go back to
Simple
a lot more
times.
creativity.
Yeah, simpler
rather
times
than,
of
getting stuck in the syntax and the grammar.
Yes.
I'm actually seeing, as a college counselor, so many analytical students picking up courses like anthropology and philosophy and these sort
Psychology.
of psychology,
Psychology.
behavioral sciences and so on, because a lot of the analytical stuff will be taken over by machines. So now they want to hone the whole humanistic elements, so as to
Yeah,
speak.
yeah, yeah,
in
You have
the
to
educational realm.
translate that whole AI world into something which is
Because
human.
understanding the mind of AI and what goes into processing information through AI is also equally critical as
Yeah.
the AI tool itself.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
true.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, we are seeing, in fact, in our case, a lot of, whether it is coding, content development, a lot of other stuff, AI is doing a far terrific job of it, right? So then you have to figure out really what one, obviously the productivity goes up and you get much more out of, what I could do alone, for example, you're able to do much more. But the other bit is you need to reinvent and figure out really, where, how you create value in whatever business you are doing.
No, we need our Da Vinci's back. We need our
You
Manis and Monis
remember,
back.
there were no tools. Those guys were the creative guys.
That's it. So go back to. I think we're going to go back to that while the world would be now taken care of in that.
But then it's a double-edged sword. If this negative creativity comes with these tools, what kind of devastation they can create?
That's it.
That's the other side of the the problem that we have in AI.
So I want to ask a poignant question to both of you. You were acquaintances, come friends, became business partners, right? And we see business partners with not a great friendship going on to becoming friends later on. So I want to understand this whole relationship of friends forming or forging partnerships and partners going on to becoming friends. So your own individual experiences of how this partnership works, how the friendship works. Are there compartments when you guys are wearing your own professional hats?
I think it's a very interesting question because a lot of times, when two people come together to work, sometimes there is a reason for you to act in a certain way because you want to prove your abilities, capabilities, or presence, or you want to accomplish something, and then you want to represent or be out there. I think in our case, all those things were done. They were all behind us. So we came together because our intents were very, very strongly aligned to our core stakeholder, which is the child. I think that powered. So everything gets powered from there. So we derive our energy. Is it aligned to our stakeholder or not? Which is the student or
Sure.
the user. So and we're not to prove a point to
It's
each
also,
other.
It's
Yeah.
also an organic process, right? I mean, you've known each other for quite some time.
We actually preempt a lot of things.
You've discussed business in the past,
Yeah.
even when Meritnation was a separate entity and Aakash was separate. Then you did do this transaction. Then you have a vision which doesn't go anywhere eventually, right?
Yeah. It just transmutes into different avenues.
So once
but
you've
remains.
had, you've been with each other through that process, so the whole thing becomes sort of organic, and you don't have to consciously think about, and you understand each other's strengths and weaknesses as well, right? And you try to complement in whichever way one can.
In fact, a lot of time we take upon ourselves that we've done so much, in this sector. So we take upon ourselves as a responsibility for us to, give back. So, we take upon ourselves this as a responsibility that, we have to, give back what we have learned, give back in a way that what we know, to put it all together and create something which the world hasn't seen. So it's like, uh, if a great sports person has an opportunity to play a good match, then, they can really outperform, and we want to do that because carrying so much experience and, bags of mistakes with us, so we know, where most people falter, so we want to avoid that. And then I think we have a great opportunity, and that's how, we both think in a similar fashion that allows us to, sort of align automatically to the bigger vision and purpose, rather than trying to prove that, I can do this, or you need not do this, or this is for me, or this is for you. So
Yeah.
those things are completely behind our back.
And generally, if you have the intents are sort of aligned, and the passion or hunger is there, and if you have similar work ethics, you have good work ethics, then it becomes much easier, honestly speaking. And for us, the whole journey has been pretty organic for so many years. So the question
We can
never
see
sort of
there's
arose.
such a mutual respect for each other and each other.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Okay, that's a discovery process.
That's
We are discovering
No, you
respect.
both
I
are.
think one of the important things that I think I forgot mentioning here is we need to have fun.
That I was
Yeah,
just going to
yeah,
say,
yeah,
you
yeah.
guys
It's
have
so
a great.
important,
Yes.
to have fun along the way. But you can't be just
Yeah,
just be
Just be
transactional
uptight
and
all the time.
uptight about
yeah.
the venture.
Yeah.
I think a good venture is an outcome of a good camaraderie, and that is supreme for us.
And we also realized after all these years
And-
that you need to enjoy the process as well.
Enjoy the
really,
process. Otherwise, there's no fun. And
Yeah.
and we want our teams also to enjoy the process.
Right.
Yeah.
So, one piece of advice that both of you would like to give to aspiring edtech founders / existing edtech entrepreneurs, because you guys come with so much experience, expertise, values, and so on.
I don't know what the new founders are doing, but what we have seen in past, the other edtech founders who've not, gone where they could have gone, is a lot of them try to compensate the core offering, which is the student, the pedagogy, and the outcome. I think they underestimated the importance and the relevance of that. I think they went behind building large companies, valuations, sales, and marketing, bandwagon, rather than building something that the student and the parent would genuinely care, which is getting them the outcomes that they paid money for, or taking them from point A to point B, adding that delta in their life, that value in their life, and then really continue to better that. So I think that is where I think most people have.
And
Altered.
also, additionally, like any business, edtech business also plays by the same math, right? You need to have a path at some point of time. You need to figure out a path to earning more than what you spent at the end of the day.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that math sort of remains constant for any business. And I think in the past, for a new segment, lots of entrepreneurs did not give enough time for the whole discovery process in terms of, is there a good product market fit, what's going to work, what's not going to work. They just scaled.
Yeah.
Scaled. And the other bit, especially in education, is you have to create more of an inbound business. The retention rates have to be high. It's true for any business, but in education especially, and that's been the problem with the tech business in the past. You have to have your consumers coming back to you on their own. Your word of mouth has to sort of spread. So it has to be more of an inbound business. If you push the scale, you build it as an outbound business, especially in education. And we've seen what happens there. So I think, and then the basic math and focus on outcomes, as Aakash is talking about, will get the people to come back to you,
Sure.
Time and again.
It's a business of trust. You need to learn how to build that trust. And trust comes by delivering outcome consistently, month after month, year after year. So I think that consistency emphasis we felt was missing. I mean, we've seen EdTechs who were great academic guys, but didn't know how to build the product. I mean, the tech and everything, and build the business. They were academicians, so they lacked, the other two vertices of this triangle. And then we had some really solid tech guys who hired a pedagogy guy, an academic guy, make content for us, and we'll just, make a product out of it. So they created a feature-rich, nice-looking product, but that didn't deliver the learning and outcome.
So there is
And-
that whole three circle.
Yeah, the academics, the pedagogy, the technology, and the entrepreneurship. They all have to come in place. In our case, why we were so confident about Sparkl was because we've done the academics and pedagogy, we've delivered the outcomes, we've built the tech and the product and the features and the whole technology, and we built the business and exited and created value and distributed value. And we thought, this is how, and that gave us the conviction that we can do this all again, and in an absolutely new avatar, which is far more technology dependent, and in the current generation, which is AI and machine learning. While we are waiting for robots to come and teach, but that's another story. For me, our dining table conversation with my father, teaching students and outcomes coming, and how the families, the villages and districts change because of one thing, which is education. And I think education in this country has been the ticket for changing lives
That's
and
Yeah.
fortunes, not only for the person, but for the family, for the village. I mean, we've had kids who've transformed themselves and their entire community. And it's a great cause to pursue.
So we now come to our favorite segment of the podcast, which is Behind Closed Doors, where we are going to be asking certain fun, quirky questions to both Aakash and Pavan. And let's see what comes out of this discussion. Yeah. So, Shubhani, you want to go first and probably ask some questions to Pavan?
Yeah. Okay. One thing Indian parents must stop doing immediately.
I mean, they should stop driving their kids mad all the time. I think that is one thing they have to. I've seen that at home. I've
Yeah.
seen lots of parents doing it. It doesn't do any good. But I think they have to stop overthinking and over worrying about what the future will bring.
Has it gotten worse over time?
I think it's not. I mean, there is more data available now to parents.
Yeah.
In case of my parents, they were my mother was very concerned about how I would do in terms of my education, but she didn't have too much of data, right? You
Yeah.
can get your report card at the end of the year. That's the only data. Now the parents have so much more data, and therefore so many more reasons to worry, and that somewhere gets sort of passed on. Doesn't particularly change the outcome. So I think if one thing the parents can do is they can chill some more, and especially given the fact what's going to happen in the future, I think things are going to change drastically. So they can just let their kids be to a large extent.
Fabulous. Totally.
So I'm going to ask Aakash. Aakash, one stereotype that people have about education entrepreneurs that's completely wrong.
I think they feel that all the education entrepreneurs they're creating that false need for urgency for their programs, and I think that needs to be corrected. I think they create so much noise around if this doesn't happen, that you guys don't have a future. That kind of
So the whole
perception,
FOMO moment.
movement that they create. I think that's completely wrongly placed, and parents should not get into that pressure.
And also the narrative, like you said, supply creates its own demand. It's not always the case. There is a demand, which is why there is a supply. So
Right.
Correct.
both
Right.
sides to the coin.
Right,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
One thing students today care more about than previous generations.
I think they are much more conscious about their career today than they were in the past. Maybe the reason also is that there were just a couple of these choices you had to make when I was a student, for example. You either become a doctor, you become an engineer, or you become a creative person. You became one of these three. Now I think the students are much more conscious of The fact that they have so many different choices available to them. And I see this changing not only in the cities, even in smaller towns and villages. Like, my father runs a school for the village kids, and I interact with those kids regularly.
Sure.
And I see that changing. They're also aware that there is so much more they can do. They have so many options to choose from.
Yeah.
So that is very clearly one large difference that I see from my time as a student and today.
That's true.
Right. Aakash, one thing about the IIT and NEET ecosystem in India that insiders know but rarely say publicly.
The system can be gamified. It is, I think the whole system has been completely threadbarely dissected. That people think that it is stuff. It is not. It's just a system. And if somebody can commit to that framework, it's not a challenge. I think most people don't know how to commit to that framework. That's about it.
Pavan, one mistake you made early on as an educator that changed how you now lead today.
One mistake.
No, she's asking for only one mistake. I mean, I would have made 100, but she wants only one. So why are you forcing me to talk about those 1,000 mistakes that I've committed?
For another 2 hours.
I can imagine so many DMs on YouTube and Instagram saying, Pavan, we want to know more.
I think as a teacher, obviously, it's a very different experience, and you deal with all sorts of students, and you figure out different ways of dealing with different students. So no mistake per se there as a teacher, but I can say as an EdTech founder, so to speak, there are quite a few things that one could have sort of done differently. And one is, for example, when I started Meritnation, it was just a fixed line broadband. Even the mobile internet had not sort of come in. And I believed that this fixed line broadband is going to go to every household, and everyone will have this amazing access in 3-4 years time and stuff like that. But your life passes in those 3-4 years, right? And you try to figure out. So I think one has to be willing to change fairly quickly, more so today, I would say, but even back then. And I think some of those transitions or some of those changes I did not do fast enough, which one is very conscious of now. So we discuss this and we think about this, that you have to see what is going to change, and you have to be very quick to changing yourself in terms of looking at this as a business.
Okay, one habit, I'm sure there'll be many, but one habit that has helped you succeed for decades.
I'm lazy.
I can answer that question for you.
I'm lazy. That has really helped me.
No, I let me tell you. I mean, he's very diligent. Actually, maybe he doesn't see that happens, but he's very diligent, very process oriented. Doing these small things one after another to achieve the outcome. That kind of patience and perseverance that he has,
persistent and methodical,
is difficult to get actually.
Because I've always believed, people say that just get me the result, and I don't understand that. I said your output is as good as your input. If your input is not good enough, the output can never be good. Garbage in, garbage out. So if you can figure out what is the quality of inputs that you're giving out, you don't have to then worry about the output. Will come. Then it is, it goes to the karma. Like, what's been destined for you, you will get it. The thing that you have in your hand is the input. So just do that honestly and diligently. You will get your outcome that has been earmarked for you.
And he has this habit of chipping away at the problem rather than just breaking it. Dheere dheere karke.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Like this,
because it sculpts.
That's how. So he has that.
solution.
You require a lot of patience, and that's why he said lazy, though maybe, but requires a lot of patience.
I'm crazy patient.
Yeah, that he is.
like they say,
that's
instant
fair.
coffee, tastes
Nothing.
crap. You've got to enjoy that
The filter.
perfect cup with the crema and the.
Put your filter, let it pour, let it enjoy
Oh, I
that.
totally. Pavan, for you, and maybe Aakash can answer this, one personality trait that makes someone / you a great teacher. someone a great teacher for you?
Yeah,
And
I think being a good teacher is also about a lot of theater,
Yes.
honestly. You need to know your subject, you need to know your concepts, but you also have to know your audience and play to your audience and understand what will click when. I mean, not every kid is interested in learning quadratic equations at the end of the day, right?
No.
You have to get them to be more interested than they otherwise. I think that's the best you can hope to do. So it requires a bit of theater, I think. And so if you can do that along with knowing your concepts and having the empathy for your kids, I think you'll be a great teacher. It's as simple as that.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I would second that. I mean, knowing your audience is super important, like reading the room, right? And, one thing that I learned from my dad, he taught for 40 years. And in all those 40 years, he would prepare his lecture and go. I said, you've done this like zillion times, you're teaching genetics like for 40 years, and if I'm hitting a classroom, I need to still, go through my notes, structure my thoughts, because when I look at my notes and I map my class, what kind of classroom am I getting into? Is like, scholar kind of kids or average kind of kids or, borderline kids. Then my approach to that entire topic changes significantly. So I need to relook at my notes, prepare my thought process, and then enter the class. And he would always do that, come what may. And I think for a great teacher, this humility that, I need to continue to learn and relearn basis my audience, because, and he says, I've seen generation of students, how the kids in the 80s would study, how the kids in 90s would study, how the kids in 2000 would react to my lecture, and how the Gen Z is reacting is very, very different. So you can't harp them with the same, content that you learned in the 70s when you were doing your MSc. It has to be different.
Sure.
Upgrade yourself.
One last question that we ask all our guests: what does unconditional love and kindness mean to you? So, Pavan.
I mean, by definition, unconditional is without conditions, right? I mean, that's a kind of love or that you have for your family or otherwise, right? I mean, I can't think of anything else. I mean, it is that you have no vested interest. You can't think of any reason why you're doing something you're doing. It just happens. It's so natural. It's organic. That for me, that's what it is.
Aakash.
Very interesting question. So once, my son asked me a question around, this particular individual, he doesn't like that individual. And then, we got into a conversation around subjects and teaching, and said, this is tough. I said, no, this is not tough. Liking a person whom you don't like is the toughest thing. Try doing that. Is the hardest thing. And if you're able to do that, then you've elevated yourself to, the whole
different
era of unconditional love. I mean, we come across people whom we don't like, and we don't even see their face or have a conversation, and shutting that down and, liking that person
Still engaging,
is the toughest thing. And I have experienced that in life. And I think that has been the genesis for me to look at the real definition of unconditional love. And people who are able to do that, hats off to them. And I think that's a journey that, I think everybody should be on.
Thank you so much, both of you. What a pleasure it was. So much information, so much insights, and really giving us a peek of what is really happening in the coming future for our young adults. Thank you again for your time and for every kind of insight. And I hope our audience really takes that and, has conversations about these new concepts of AI and, take them forward.
Host and, bombarded us with some really, we had to make us all think.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you so much.
So today's episode, we had two gentlemen who are nothing but all in pure heart. What they've built is phenomenal, and they don't really look at education as a business, but they look at it as their mission as they said, their intent, always the student and the user at the epicenter of everything that they're doing. And that's what we need. And one empowered and educated child changes the destiny of the land, the destiny of the nation, the destiny of the world. And I'm sure that both of their names will be written down in history for changing the landscape of India where education is concerned. That's what Kin and Kindness is about, where we hold these discussions and show that everything that successful people do in life is boiling down to that premise of kindness. This is Shubhani, this is Punya. We are going to be back next fortnight.